I think you're still muted, Ricky. Is the audio gone? Well, let's see if Ricky can sort out those audio problems there. It's absolutely typical that right at the top of the show, I've been chatting to Ricky in the back end for the last 20 minutes, and it's all worked absolutely perfectly. So I suppose I'll take the reins till Ricky comes back. But welcome everyone to another edition of Last Word on Spurs. Delighted to say we're joined tonight by the fantastic Sami Mokbel. There's plenty to go through in Tottenham's latest transfer pursuit, and maybe a little bit of news tonight. Are we back, Ricky? We good?
We're back. Yeah, so excited this James Maddison news. My stream got cut. What can I say? Trying to get myself carried away here. Everyone's wondering what is going on right now. Obviously, we're expecting hopefully an announcement very, very soon, but so much going on in the world of Tottenham Hotspur. Even I was getting carried away there for a second. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Last Word on Spurs. If you're listening to us for the first time, like on iTunes, we're on Spotify, across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on Twitter at Last Word on Spurs. We're on Facebook and Instagram too. And saving the day as he did there, and that is be joining us a lot in these next 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks of what's to come in the transfer window. Delighted to be back on the show. We've got the wonderful Matty Hayes with us. Matt, how are you, bud?
Absolute pleasure to be here. Like I was saying, plenty of good news to talk through at the beginning of a transfer window, which I'm sure everyone listening and watching is going to enjoy.
Absolutely. As many are referring to in the comments here, an absolute Spurs start to the show. What can I say? The good thing is, it can only get better, right? So we're hoping so. And one man I'm sure is going to make it a lot better. We're delighted to have him back on Last Word on Spurs. Regularly joins us during the transfer window. He's become a bit of a regular face here on Last Word on Spurs. He'll decide whether it's for better or for worse. We've got the wonderful chief football reporter of the Mail. We've got the superb Sami Mokbel joining us. Sami, how are you, my man? You okay?
Very good. Ricky, we couldn't shut you up off air, and then we get on here and we can't hear you. What's going on?
My wife's got the same problem, mate. I wouldn't worry about it. She wishes I'm live all the time, bless her. Give her a break from it all.
No, listen, guys, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I love doing this show. So, yeah. I look forward to it.
Oh, mate, listen, likewise. You come to us at a time where, look, I think things are just getting started during Spurs' transfer window, very, very much so. I know many want us to start probably with the imminent arrival of James Maddison. And I must just say, for those listening back on audio, when this show does go out live, James Maddison may very well already be a Tottenham Hotspur player, such the excitement there is. Of course, there's a lot to talk about. Harry Kane's future is on the top of the pile as well. But we do want to revert, if we can, back to the fact that Spurs do have a new head coach. And Sam, to really get your opinion on it, because he's been appointed on a 4-year contract. We received the news earlier in the week that the 57-year-old will be joined by former Liverpool, Swansea, Leicester coach Chris Davis, who joins as a senior assistant coach. He's also joined by the former Palace and Villa midfielder Millie Jedinak, who actually played under Postecoglou for the Australian national team. He'll work as the assistant coach for Tottenham. We've got the long-time coach serving Ryan Mason, appointed the assistant coach alongside Matt Wells, and former Spurs goalkeeper Rob Birch returns to the club to act as the first-team goalkeeping coach, having previously worked with the academy back in 2019. Really want to get your thoughts, Sam, if we can, on the overall appointment, firstly, of Ange Postecoglou, and intrigued to know from your end at the Mail, just how far up was he on Spurs' managerial shortlist of targets?
Yeah, to answer the first part of that question, I personally think it's an exciting appointment. It's a left field appointment, and it's an unknown appointment, and I think that kind of what makes it exciting. This is his first kind of, with all due respect to Celtic, who are a massive club, we all know that. But in terms of quality and prestige, this is the prestige, really. This is his first real opportunity at an elite club, if we can call Tottenham an elite club, which I think they are. He plays attacking football, which is something that I think we can all agree that has been lacking over the past 2 or 3 seasons, and it's something that Daniel Levy's made a big thing about over the summer with regards to the appointment he wanted to make. He wanted someone who would take the club, who would return the club to their attacking traditions. And I think in Postecoglou, they've got a manager or a head coach who will implement that style. So I think from that point of view, it's very, very exciting and very interesting. But the fact remains that he is an unknown quantity. We don't know. He doesn't have as I said, he's done well in Scotland and he's won titles in Scotland, but in the top league, he's still an unknown quantity and he's unproven. I think that is where the excitement is in many ways. It's because we want to see this guy who speaks so well, who's a really likable guy, from what we see, at his press conferences. So straight away, in terms of the media, in terms of the press, we want him to be a success because he'll give us good quotes, and his press conferences are going to be funny, and they're going to be emotive, and that's what we want as journalists. We want someone who is invested in talking to us and who can connect with us and also connect with the public, with our readers. And I think we've definitely got a guy who'll be able to do that. But when all's said and done, he will be graded and he will be rated with what he does on the pitch. So time will tell with that. And in terms of the second part of your question, Ricky, about where he was in the running order of who Spurs wanted to go to. Listen, I don't think he was top. Many, I'm sure the club will disagree, and maybe many other people will disagree with that. But my understanding is that they first of all looked at Julian Nagelsmann. That couldn't materialise for a whole host of reasons. Arne Slot didn't happen. They tried to make that happen, but it didn't. And then, once that looked like, or once that kind of collapsed, I thought Postecoglou was gathered traction and became more of an attractive proposition to the guys behind the scenes at Tottenham. And here he is, he's there. So, I wish him well. I personally think he's going to do a good job. It's a tough job, but it's one I think he will be hungry to prove. And that's the thing with him, because this is his first real big job. He will be hungry to prove himself. And he's done the hard yards, and he's here now. And hopefully, obviously, from your guys' point of view, I'm guessing you guys obviously want him to hit the ground running.
Absolutely. And I think, like you were mentioning, the fact that it's such a left field appointment, I think there are some Spurs fans who are looking at what feels like the same mistakes that have been made over the last few years, that maybe we're going a little bit of a different direction. And where we might grab a little bit of optimism from that is from the new chief football officer in Scott Munn, who has worked with Ange Postecoglou before. And you kind of have to feel that he would have been crucial within the operations at Spurs to get this deal over the line. Do you think that Munn coming in and clearly having such a big impact with the first appointment, that it could mean that Daniel Levy will take a step back from the football operations? And just as a follow-up, what do you think Munn's position actually means for a potential director of football and a potential replacement for Paratici?
Do I think Daniel Levy will take a step back from the football operation? I think, in theory, he probably should, given the title of chief football officer you've got there, a guy there in Scott Munn who, given his title, should oversee and should lead the whole footballing operation. But we know, and history tells us, that Daniel Levy likes to be involved in everything, in all aspects of the footballing operation, particularly in terms of recruitment. A lot of the recruitment that's already been done this summer has been led by Daniel in the absence of a director of football. Interestingly, over the last few days, I've been hearing little snippets about the kind of the profile of guy that Tottenham have been looking for with regards to fill the role that Fabio Paratici has left. And it's, yes, obviously they want someone to be fully involved in the recruitment side of the club, buying and selling of players. But I also understand they want maybe someone a bit more aligned with what a technical director would do. Someone who can look at the academy, someone who will take an interest in the footballing philosophy of the club, rather than just the buying and selling of players, which what many supporters think sporting directors generally do. I think Tottenham want someone who can encompass that whole, pulling all those strands of, what's best for the academy, what first team players do we need to attract, which players do we need to sell? They want someone who can sort of globally pull that all together. So once that appointment is made, it'll be very interesting to see who they pick or who they select.
Absolutely. We are going to talk about Spurs' latest signing of the summer window. I will just say for our listeners on audio when this goes out, this could potentially be one of two for Tottenham. We, of course, are waiting on news of James Maddison. That may very well be announced during the show or shortly afterwards. But Tottenham have signed the Italian goalkeeper Guglielmo Vicario from Serie A side Empoli on a 5-year contract. He's a second signing, of course, under new manager Ange Postecoglou after the Swedish midfielder Dejan Kulusevski turned his loan spell into a permanent move. Quite interesting, Sam, that the club described Vicario as a commanding goalkeeper with the ability to play out from the back, which is quite unusual as the club don't normally go into descriptive natures on players on a statement of when they're announced. I mean, I'd be really keen to get your thoughts on the overall signing of him and how early he was identified into the process, given at one point it seemed destined that David Raya was going to join Tottenham.
It's very interesting, and I think it's another clear indication from inside the club of the direction that they want to go in terms of a footballing philosophy. Listen, I think we would all agree Hugo Lloris has been a fantastic servant, club captain to the club, and has deserved all the plaudits. Okay, he's not won a trophy, but he's been a fantastic player for Tottenham and been one of the leaders. But where he may lack is his ability on the ball, which in modern day football is such an important aspect of a team that wants to play expansive possession based football. You need your goalkeeper to be like an Edison or a David Raya, Robert Sanchez. All of these guys are fantastic, great with the ball at their feet. And the fact that Tottenham have made a point about stressing how good they think he is in possession is another clear indication for me that, look, guys, it's a message to the fans. Look, this is the football we're going to be playing next season. You should be really excited about this because we're going to go back to our roots. So time will tell, obviously, and proof will be in the pudding with regards to how good a footballer, how good a goalkeeper he is, first and foremost, shot stopper, and obviously with the ball at his feet. But it's obviously something that they've been looking for. David Raya was, and I know it's looked like it's not going to happen now unless they go left field and bring in two goalkeepers. But that was one that was very, very close. They were haggling over it was a matter of £1 million, but in the end, it's pretty clear that Daniel Levy decided no. They didn't want to pay the 40 million that Brentford were insisting on that they would pay, and they've gone elsewhere.
I think it's another bit of a change from what we're used to at Spurs. That, like, even as you mentioned with Slot and how quickly Postecoglou picked up traction, and then with Raya to Vicario, I know Tottenham have kind of been famously, going for their B option so many times, but it's clear that we've had a list there and we've had options ready to go if the main deal didn't go through. And I put it on Twitter yesterday about Vicario, the first interview he did with Spurs. I've never seen one like it, where he was so comfortable, and even his body language, he was passionate about what he was talking about, and he clearly just loves goalkeeping, which I think that passion that Postecoglou has as well, being in that squad, is brilliant. And Guglielmo Vicario's father actually was speaking to Messaggero Veneto in Italy, and he said that Vicario straight away got on very well with Postecoglou. He said a week ago Guglielmo made a video call with his new coach Postecoglou. They spoke in English. The coach told him that he had been chosen because, just like him, he had followed a certain path, and it's one Vicario mentioned in that interview, speaking about how he came from the bottom. He accepted competition with himself, I think he put it, and worked his way up through the ranks. Does it already feel to you, Sami, that despite only being here for a very short time and technically not having officially started the job yet, but does it feel like Postecoglou was already having a huge influence on what footballers come into the club?
Yeah, I definitely do think that hungry players is what I was told he wanted, and he's almost, from what I understand about the way Postecoglou works, and I'm going to stress now, I'm not comparing Ange Postecoglou to Sir Alex Ferguson, because I'm not, but from what I understand, the way he works is very much like the way Ferguson worked in his latter days at Manchester United, delegating, trusting his staff, letting his staff do a lot of the coaching, and he's almost like a grand commander of the club, overseeing the whole operation. Yes, looking at coaching, picking the team, but also keeping his eyes, firmly on recruitment. And it doesn't surprise me at all that Ange Postecoglou is already having a major influence on the players that they sign, and having a major say in the club's recruitment strategy. I think that goes hand in hand with what I've heard how he operates.
I will just say again, there's a lot of excitement right now in the comments, and it does appear Spurs are on the verge, if they've not already, of breaking the news that James Maddison is officially a Tottenham Hotspur player, imminent arrival. We're going to talk about him very, very shortly. I know, again, many people just want to go straight to James Maddison. There's obviously a lot to cover during the show. We want to try and get the most out of the wonderful Sami Mokbel as we can. This is the question for you, Sam. It's been widely reported that Spurs, in terms of their targets, they're plotting the goalkeeper. It looks like they've got their man. We've heard they're looking for a couple of centre-backs, one that can predominantly play on the left and the right-sided roles in Postecoglou's central duo, along with potentially a winger and that creative number midfielder, which it looks like Spurs have got their man in James Maddison. Are those the areas you say Spurs are looking at, or is there any other areas you feel they may look to strengthen between now and the end of this summer transfer window?
I think Tottenham are open to all sorts of players, and I don't think they're ruling anything out. Is what I'm hearing, but you're absolutely right. Centre backs is an area that they definitely want to strengthen 100%. On that point, actually, I would like to add. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk this summer, I think, about Eric Dyer possibly leaving the club. My understanding of that situation is that Eric Dyer actually wants to stay and he wants to fight for his place, and he's actually looking forward to working with Ange Postecoglou next season, which I don't know. I don't know if that you boys will view that as a positive, but I think Ange Postecoglou will need leaders and will need experienced players and pros in his squad in his first season to lean on. And then, no matter what you think of Eric Dyer as a player, opinions will always vary over players, right? But one thing that he is, in my opinion, is a leader, and he's definitely one of the main men in that dressing room. So I think we can, unless there's a change of heart, I think we can expect him to stay and try and be part of Ange Postecoglou's team moving forward. But aside from that, centre backs, yes, of course, they're looking to strengthen. I also hear they're looking for a centre midfielder.
Is
that in addition to James Maddison, Sam?
Yep, in addition to James Maddison, yeah, another, like a number 6 or a number 8 type, that kind of that kind of, more probably in the number 6 mould. And potentially a left back, I think, if Perisic goes.
Yeah, I will just say on Eric Dyer, that's it's interesting news. I think I say there's so much excitement on James Maddison that might just bring everybody back down to earth a little bit. And no disrespect to Eric Dyer, of course. Like always, I think we are excited for Ange Postecoglou's season in charge. Again, it'll be interesting to see how that does go amongst a lot of Spurs fans, viewers, and listeners, how they make of that news of Eric Dyer. I'll also hand back to Matt.
Yeah, look, before we look at who, I was going to say who could be replacing Eric Dyer, but who could potentially be playing alongside him next year, we do need to speak about Hugo Lloris, Sammy, and you already mentioned him there. He's admitted himself that he desires for other things, as he put it, and he's looking at his options regarding life away from Spurs in what he called the end of an era. Following the signing of Vicario, do you expect Spurs to allow him to make that move happen this summer? I think there's been rumours of Spurs maybe just kind of voiding that final year of his contract. And if you do think he's on the way out, where do you think we could see him lining out next season?
I think he will return to France. Obviously, I'm sure there's millions and millions of pounds worth of money in Saudi, in the Middle East. But I think his heart, is set on returning to his homeland. He's a hero in France, and I think he would want to go back there. I don't know which clubs. I think I've seen Nice mentioned a few times, but I think Vicario's arrival will certainly kind of hasten that move. And listen, if he wants to go, and he has made clear now that he wants to leave. I think the level of respect that Tottenham have for Hugo Lloris and what he's done for that club will see them kind of grant him his wish, maybe really of giving him a move, whether that means getting a small transfer fee for him or whether that means letting him go on a free transfer. I think Hugo Lloris will leave this summer, and it will be a huge void, because he's, at the end of the day, he's club captain, and he's been a massive part of that club for years. So big shoes to fill for Vicario, but we hear good things, and Tottenham obviously spent a lot of money on him. So and I'm sure that they've scouted him and believe that he is a goalkeeper in the kind of new mold of goalkeepers now that a lot of clubs are looking for.
Sam, this is the point where certain Spurs fans will ask you to cheer them up on the back of some of the news you've told us there on centre-backs. It feels well known, as you've alluded to in Spurs circles, that we've got to fix this really leaky defence. And that, as we understand, is a priority for Ange Postecoglou. We've been linked with a whole host of central defenders already during this summer transfer window. Some to name, obviously, Mickey van der Ven, Edmund Tapsoba, Emerick Laporte, Tosin Aradibio, Harry Maguire, Pierre Hinchapi, Max Kilman. I could go on, Mark Gahey. Any of those names scream out to you, Sam, as those actually are that a priority at the moment for Tottenham that they're focusing on?
Yeah, I think Tapsoba is one that they are very keen on. And I'm not saying that's definitely going to get done, but I think that's one that they're focusing on at the moment. I know that they've held a long-term interest in Mark Gahey at Crystal Palace, who is a fantastic player in my opinion and would do very, very well at Tottenham. But I think his price tag of around 55 to 60 million pounds would probably be quite prohibitive. But if Tottenham can secure a deal that they believe to be worth the money and worthwhile, I think they could certainly look to pursue that deal. But that will probably be later in the window. And also, I know Mark Guehi may have other options as well elsewhere in the Premier League.
Just quickly, if I can, on that, you mentioned, Sam, anything on Mickey van der Ven? He's a popular amongst Spurs fans at the moment. Is that one of any serious interest, similar to Tapsoba, or would you say they're a bit more down the line with Tapsoba at the moment?
I think I think they've tested the waters with Van der Ven, but I've heard his name quite significantly in the last few days. But my understanding is at the moment is that they're trying to go for Tapsoba and trying to see if they can secure a deal for him and get that over the line. And we're at 9 o'clock, lads, which I think means there may be some news on James Maddison relatively soon.
And it has just come through right this second. James Maddison is a Tottenham Hotspur player. Spurs do have that creative midfielder they've been crying out for since Christian Eriksen. The timing, isn't it? The time of these shows. Matt returns, Sammy returns, and Tottenham have got, for them, it is their third signing of the summer. It is James Maddison. And we'll be talking about James Maddison in a lot more detail very, very soon, for sure. I'm going to hand back, if he can compose himself, So the wonderful Matty Hayes. Matt,
I'm trying to get my tweets out, Ricky. Come on. Look, we know, like you're speaking out there, that Tottenham are focusing heavily on trying to bring some centre backs in, and you would expect that if we are to strengthen in that area, especially moving from a formation with 3 centre backs just to 2, that Tottenham would try and move some defenders out from that very, very bloated squad. When the 8 loan players that we have return for pre-season, you've Davinson Sanchez moving into the final 12 months of his contract. I think it's no secret that he's looking for pastures new. Eric Dyer, as we mentioned, Joe Rodon coming back in from another loan spell this time in France, and Japhet Tanganga, who I think is 25 now, and not really getting that chance in the team. Are you personally expecting a big overhaul at the back, Sammy?
Yeah, I think it's always easier said than done getting players out the door. They had a lot of money, and not with against popular kind of opinion, Tottenham are pretty good players, and finding clubs for players on those wages is difficult, and it's easier said than done. But I certainly think there will be defenders that Ange Postecoglou would be open to selling. I think Davinson Sanchez, you mentioned there, would be a player that and he's kind of admitted himself that his future may be away. So I think he may be one that they look to sell. We mentioned Ivan Perisic, and I don't know, maybe he's strictly not a defender, but played wing back a lot last season, and I think he might be one that they look to sell as well. He's on, but again, he signed on very big wages, so getting him off the wage bill would also be easier said than done.
What we are going to do, for all of us to have a bit of composure, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. Take you into that break. You're going to hear from Tottenham Hotspur's second signing of the window. Even I'm trying to lose count here. We're going to hear from Guglielmo Vicario, who's going to give you his first interview as a Tottenham Hotspur player. For those that are watching us live right now, we've got over 1,400 of you watching us live. Once again, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs on an evening where Tottenham have got their third signing of this summer transfer window in James Maddison. It coincides with the return of Matt Hayes and the brilliant Sami Mokbel back on Last Word on Spurs. Sam's had a busy days, man. A lot of Arsenal fans very, very happy, I must say, this morning, to our detriment, after telling that Declan Rice is very close to joining him. And he's on at a time when Spurs are announcing James Maddison. So listen, the man is trying to please both sides of North London. It's a tough task to do, but Sam's absolutely doing it for sure. We've discussed the defence length, Sam, but I want to ask you about maybe the future of some of the... we've discussed maybe also the fullbacks as well. We've said Jed Spence, Sergio Reguilon, Ryan Sessegnon, they're going to be under the spotlight. Do you have an opinion on those that might be given their chance to show their worth, and those that might either be offloaded permanently or on loan?
Personally, I think, and it's just a personal opinion, I think there's a very good player in Ryan Sessegnon somewhere. I'm sure many of you will disagree, but I think he has all the attributes to be a success in a team that plays expansive football that Ange Postecoglou wants to play. I think he's blessed with pace. Maybe the delivery could delivery from wide areas could do with a little bit of work. But I think in the right team and in the right structure, Ryan Sessegnon could be a star. So it wouldn't surprise me if at least for the opening weeks of pre-season, Ange Postecoglou has a look at him and makes a decision, whether he can be part of his team moving forward. But what is for sure is in Ryan Sessegnon, I think there will probably be takers for him if it is decided that he's deemed surplus to requirements. Elsewhere, you mentioned Reguilon there. Yeah, look, wasn't at the club. Hasn't played for the club. Wasn't at the club last season. But again, it's almost a clean slate, isn't it? With all these players, we don't know fully what Ange Postecoglou thinks of them. He may, who knows? He may look at, if Reguilon returns, and if he looks at him and says, yeah, I like the look of him. I'll have a piece of that. So I think we're all I don't want to say guessing, but we're kind of presuming with a lot of the decisions that he may or may not make. But I think a lot will become clearer over the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks once he's had a look at them in pre-season. I think they're due back in, maybe the back end, some of them at the back end of next week. So I think we'll know a lot more, hopefully, about what the plans are with regards to outs over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, look, let's give the people what they came here for. Anyone who might have missed it over the last 6 or so minutes, Tottenham have confirmed the signing of James Maddison for believed to be £40 million from Leicester, our third signing of the summer, as Ricky said. Sammy, I'm keen to know from you how hard Spurs actually had to battle for this signing, because we know Newcastle were heavily interested and for a while seemed to be leading the race. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a couple of other clubs sniffing about. And as well, I'm interested to get your opinion on how much of a statement signing this is for Spurs, because it's a position in that squad that we've been looking to fill, I'd argue, since Eriksen down tools about a year and a half before he left. We've been lacking that creativity in there. So yeah, I was going to sit back and revel in the joy of Spurs doing good business.
It's funny you mentioned that about Eriksen. Now I had the exact same conversation earlier today with a guy that works in football who is a Tottenham fan, saying that you just haven't replaced Eriksen. You haven't had a creative kind of fulcrum like that, since he departed for I think Inter Milan, I think it was back then, and but you've got one now, and he's an immensely talented footballer. Can manipulate a ball, can see a pass, assists, goals. He does everything that an attacking player should do, and he contributes to the game, not just passively. His numbers are consistently good. In terms of competition, was there much competition? Obviously, Newcastle were, have been interested in James Maddison, but I think the arrival of Ange Postecoglou and the relationship that Daniel Levy has with James Maddison's entourage, shall we say, was a key, would have been a key aspect in this. It's all about, in many ways, transfers behind the scenes. What we don't see is all about relationships. It's about the relationships that clubs have with other sporting directors at other clubs. It's agents. Everything has to fit. Everything has to be in place and have to be absolutely spot on for these deals. We're talking about 40 to 50 million pounds of money here. It's a big deal. Everything needs to kind of slide into place for it to be executed. And thankfully, I think Daniel Levy's relationships have come through with this one, and as a result, James Maddison is a Tottenham player, and I suspect, unless there's something bigger and better out there on the horizon this summer, this will probably be Tottenham's marquee signing, and an England international in the prime of his career. I think it's a really, really, really interesting sign, and it's an exciting capture as well, isn't it? It's getting a player in, as I say, in the prime of his career. He's an England international. He's high profile. He's one that he's full of it. He's bursting with attacking talent. He's a player that the fans will love. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He gives a great interview.
I totally agree.
He's the sort of player that supporters will absolutely adore, and I think it will turn out to be a really good piece of business.
You know what, Sam? On that point, you made honestly a point that I've actually felt when I watched him last season at Leicester, and even in the games that didn't perform well. But the one thing I kind of got from the man is he wasn't afraid to come out and talk to camera in some of the difficult games where it didn't go their way, and he never kind of shirked or hid on those interviews. And he wasn't a player that ever hid on the pitch either. It was difficult with the situation with Leicester, but you said there, I mean, since the start of the 2018-19 season, only Lionel Messi and Ward-Prowse have scored more direct free kicks than James Maddison in Europe's top 5 leagues, which again will get many Spurs fans excited, given the nature of the fact that we might lose Perisic this summer. And obviously Spurs have not really got, you would say, a decent dead ball specialist in the side. And then when you also take into consideration most non-penalty goals scored by midfielders in the Premier League since 21-20 season, Maddison's up there with 29, which I find incredible. And just a final one, he scored 30 goals and contributed 24 assists across the past 3 Premier League seasons. Only 6 players have done that. Kane, Salah, Son, De Bruyne, Fernandes and Ollie Watkins. And I think it's really exciting when you think two of those players are at Tottenham in Son and Kane. We're going to come on to Kane shortly. Spurs have got themselves, as you said, they're a player in a real prime of his career and one to be really excited about. I know there's been some murmurings that maybe you look at the other options of where he could have gone that may have been blocked off to him. But for Tottenham, I think it is a sign of intent. We all hope Sami is not the marquee signing. But listen, we have to take what you say seriously because, I mean, again, you are very much kind of closer to the football club than we are. But one thing I would be keen to ask you about is many have said he was a priority signing for Ange Postecoglou. Do you believe that was the case? Or, because you said a lot, it's been driven by Daniel Levy. How much drive has there been from Postecoglou to get this player over the line, in your opinion?
Listen, he would have had an influence on this deal for sure. I don't think with a head coach in place, if there's a player that Ange Postecoglou says he doesn't fancy, then I just don't think that would benefit anyone in getting off on the wrong foot like that. So they would have certainly sought Ange Postecoglou's opinion on this, but it's a no-brainer. He's a fantastic footballer. Any really manager of a head coach of a club, even in the top 6, really, would look at James Maddison and say, "Yeah, we'll have a bit of that," because he can add something to our team. There were reports. It might be at the start of February that Man City were looking at him, and I understand that. I think that there was major sort of truth in that. Now, if Pep Guardiola is looking at you as a player who could possibly go into a team that has now gone on to win the treble, then you've got to be some player. So yeah, look, Ange Postecoglou would certainly have known about this deal for sure, and he would certainly have approved this deal. But as I say, it's hard not to approve such a deal for James Maddison, just because we all know what kind of player he is. A fantastic player, and Ricky, you alluded to a couple of minutes ago, he's a player that actually cares, and he might get himself into trouble sometimes with what he says, but he only does that from a good place. I spent some time with him on the England beat, and I've spoken to him, interviewed him a few times, and the one thing that shines through about him is the fact that he's passionate and he cares about football and he loves his football and he wants to win. And after the season that Tottenham had last season, you need as many winners as you can in that squad. And I think he's one. I think he's one of them. I think he's going to be a fantastic signing.
Final one if I can on it, Sam, only because many have alluded to this, that there were reports that Antonio Conte was actually offered the chance to sign James Maddison by Daniel Levy, and essentially Conte didn't fancy him. Is that anything you've heard at all back at the time? I mean, he's been, from what we heard, on Daniel Levy's radar for a long time. Any real truth in that Conte may have been offered him by Daniel to go for him at the time?
I hadn't heard that, but given Daniel's relationships, I think a deal for James Maddison, a previous deal, a historic deal for James Maddison, could have been facilitated for sure. But where would a James Maddison fit into an Antonio Conte side? And that and I'm not saying that Antonio Conte would have been wrong or right to have snubbed the move for James Maddison. But if you look at the way that he set up his team at Tottenham, I don't think there's a natural position for a James Maddison in this team. And if you're signing a player for 40, 50, 60 million quid, then generally speaking, he should go straight into the team. And I know you guys spent that much on Richarlison last year, and it hasn't necessarily worked out that way. But generally speaking, if you spend that amount of money, he needs to be a regularly in the starting 11. And under Conte, I'm just not sure where Maddison would fit in. But in a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 under Ange Postecoglou, you can see there that there is a natural fit for a player like of James Maddison's kind of qualities there in that team, and which is another reason why I think he will end up being a great signing for Tottenham, because I think he actually fits into the system that Ange Postecoglou wants to play.
I think one of the beautiful things about that Postecoglou Celtic side is there were so many players who were so versatile and could pop up in different areas of the pitch. And you mentioned that we might even be looking at another centre midfield signing on the attacking end of that spectrum. We've also seen reports linking Spurs to Harvey Barnes, the teammate of James Maddison, Alex Scott of Bristol City as well, attracting a lot of interest, and Xavi Simons of PSV. Do you think Tottenham might make any more signings on the attacking midfield side?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think they're open to everything this summer. I don't think they've obviously that they'll have areas that they've targeted, and goalkeeper was definitely one. They've got their goalkeeper. They've now got their Eriksen replacement in James Maddison. I think they've got those important areas covered off pretty quickly. But in terms of attacking areas, you mentioned Harvey Barnes there, and I think there is an interest in Harvey Barnes, but equally I think Harvey Barnes has got a number of options, and I think Harvey Barnes may look at Tottenham, and whilst he would be attracted to Tottenham, he may look at that and say, "Hang on a minute, how often am I going to play here?" Because he's a winger, and that you've got players there. Son will probably play off the wing. Kulusevski will probably play off the wing. You've got Richarlison there who will be vying to play off the wing as well. So Harvey Barnes may look at that situation and think, I may be better off elsewhere, so somewhere where I can play regular football. Because let's not forget, Harvey Barnes has been in a couple of the England squads under Gareth Southgate. He might have played. I think he might have made his England debut as well. But anyway, I think he would look at maybe going to a club like, for example, like a West Ham or an Aston Villa, maybe, where he'd know that he'd play pretty regularly. Whereas at Tottenham, I'm just not sure that there'd be that guarantee.
Do you think the decision for that midfielder could depend on the future of Tanguy and Ndombele? Because some sources have indicated that Postecoglou is open to taking a bit of a closer look at Ndombele, who we don't need to tell you has really struggled to get into that Spurs side. Do you know if Ndombele is keen on maybe trying to resurrect that Spurs career?
Yeah, I think he's open to it. I think there have been reports to that effect over the summer. I think there is a good player in Ndombele somewhere. But whether he's cut out for the helter-skelter nature of the Premier League, I'm not entirely sure. But listen, Ange Postecoglou may think differently once he's had a look at him and kind of evaluated the way he plays. But as I said earlier, I do think it's a clean slate for everyone at Tottenham, and that including Ndombele. And if he reports for pre-season and he impresses, and then who's to say? Why wouldn't Ange Postecoglou sort of have a look at him and maybe sort of reintegrate him into his plans if he impresses?
We do obviously know, Sam, we're expecting you to say, again, a bit of a clear out to come, given the nature of obviously the players that Spurs are bringing in already. Some midfielders that have got big question marks over their future. One is Harry Winks, who looks like he's closing in on a move to Leicester City, obviously the opposite direction of James Maddison. And there's also the futures maybe to be resolved of Giovanni Lo Celso and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. So maybe to start on Winks, your understanding of where we are with that particular move to Leicester City, and then potentially Lo Celso and Højbjerg, where you feel they may end up come the end of this summer transfer window.
Yeah, I think Winks will go. I think Winks will end up going to Leicester. I think that deal definitely has legs, and and those wheels are in motion. I think Harry Winks had options abroad, but but joining Leicester, it seems like a good fit for me. You know, get his career back on track. He knows he'll play regularly in the Championship, and he'll probably be one of, if not not say he's the best player in the Championship, but he'd be one of the best players in that league, because he's got. I know he might have lost his way a little bit, but he's got bags of ability. And if Leicester's new manager Enzo Maresca wants to play a possession-based style, which presumably he does if he's buying a player like Harry Winks, I think he can thrive in that. I think he will thrive in that team, and I think he'll be a brilliant acquisition for Leicester, and it also gets his career back on track after sort of 2 or 3 years in the wilderness, really. You know, I know he struggled with injury certainly last year, but he needs something to reinvigorate his career, and I think that move will be good for him. And who were the other ones you mentioned there, Ricky?
Yeah, it's Giovanni Lo Celso. Again, I mean, there's been widespread reports he may end up abroad, or even I think Aston Villa may have been interested in him, obviously with his relationship with Unai Emery, and have also Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. If there's anything you've got on him at all.
Yeah, I'd heard that Bayern Munich were looking, and listen, I've not verified. This is just a text I'd got on my phone, but that Bayern Munich were looking at Højbjerg as a potential option. I don't know if that's out there or if that's been reported, but I think he's on their radar. But I look at Højbjerg and I just look at him and I think he could be a really important player for Postecoglou, just because of his work ethic and the way he organises teams, and he's going to need plays like that. Postecoglou, certainly throughout the first 6 months of his reign, and it wouldn't surprise me if Postecoglou tries to keep Højbjerg at least for a season and see how it goes. And in terms of Lo Celso, I'm not sure he will have a long-term future at Tottenham, and also I think he wouldn't mind, from what I understand, maybe leaving and maybe returning back to the Med somewhere that's sunny.
God, I wish I could follow him. I tell you, I really wish I could. I'm going to hand back over to Matt. There's obviously the question we haven't yet covered off, which is the big one, of course, with relation to Harry Kane, which I'm going to allow Matt to take it. It's obviously one of those subjects where I think had we started with it, Sam, and because of the nature of the Kane situation, it could very much kind of transcend and take the show in a completely different direction, despite the James Maddison news. Yeah. So, Matt, I'll hand over to you to discuss where we are with Harry.
God, making me the bad guy, Ricky. Well, didn't think I'd get that from you.
Well,
look, it's a saga that's been rumbling on for the better part of 2 years now, with Harry Kane's future, and I didn't think you'd ever see a player sign a 6-year contract, and for the majority of that contract, you were asking where he's going to be when the new season starts. But it's up in the air as much now as it ever has been. And we got the news yesterday, disputed news, that Bayern may have put in a bid for Harry Kane. Tottenham looking to reject anything that comes their way, but of course Harry Kane and where he sees his future, I think 1 year left on that deal is going to be a big factor in where he might play next season. What can you tell us about the latest on this one, Sammy?
Yes, it was obviously news that developed yesterday and broke yesterday, that Bayern Munich had made an approach for a 60 million approach for Harry Kane, which in many ways is I don't want to say insulting, but you're not going to get a player, you're not going to get Harry Kane for 60 million quid. Let's face it. But what it does do, it opens a line of communications. It opens there's a negotiation to be had from them. Yes, that bid or approach, or however you want to phrase it, an offer, it's all semantics. And it definitely happened. Yes, that would have been rejected, but there is now a scenario whereby Tottenham know that Bayern are interested in their player, and it is now up to Bayern to decide how far they are willing to go and get him. Yes, Tottenham are saying absolutely steadfastly, saying we will not accept offers for Harry Kane. And they're well within their rights to do that. He's still got a year left on his contract, and he's their player. But what we do know is that Daniel Levy is a very, very savvy businessman, and the thought, as much as publicly they may want to, they don't want to admit it, the thought of losing a player like Harry Kane, who at one stage in his career was worth probably 170 to 200 million pounds, to lose him for nothing next year will just be eating away at Daniel Levy. It'll be eating away at that club, that prospect, and it's for that reason despite Tottenham's claims that he isn't for sale and he isn't for sale at any price, it is for that reason why there's a little niggling thing at the back of my mind that says if Bayern stump up the money, then Tottenham will do business.
Do you think this approach from Bayern could kick other clubs into gear? Like if I'm Real Madrid, and in an ideal world, I think for them they could try and attract Kane and Mbappe on free moves next summer. If you're Real Madrid, do you think you could be looking at this and with that mindset that you have there, that it could just be better for Spurs to let him go to a foreign club? Do you think other clubs could start to come into the mix now that Bayern have kicked things off?
I'm not sure many clubs have got the money to do that in other European clubs. Bayern would certainly be one of those. In terms of Real Madrid, they've got a concrete interest in Harry Kane. That is absolute fact. But I think what has happened with Kylian Mbappe this summer with regards to his contract and the fact that he's informed them that he's not going to trigger that 12-month extension, excuse me, has moved the goalpost slightly with regards to Real Madrid's interest. Sorry, lads. Choking there. So I don't think they would do Harry Kane and Kylian Mbappe in the same summer, because it's just that, particularly having done Jude Bellingham for 117 million quid, there's no scenario that I can see that them doing Kane and Mbappe in the same summer. So if they were having to pick one, logic tells us that it'll be Mbappe because he's the younger model, right? And there's one, in terms of from a footballing point of view, there is a longevity with Mbappe. I think he's 23, 22, 23. Obviously, Kane turns 30 next month. And while he might be a bit more expensive, it probably makes more financial sense to spend a bit more on Mbappe, like 50, 60 million quid more on Mbappe than going for Kane. So as a result of that, I think Real Madrid's interest has cooled slightly in Harry Kane. And then the only other club really that needs a striker and that are in the market for a striker are Manchester United. We know that to be the case, and we know that they are Harry Kane is their has been and is their number one target. He is the guy that they ideally want to sign. But Daniel Levy in my understanding, will just not entertain selling Harry Kane to Manchester United this summer, which again plays into Bayern Munich's hands, in my opinion. I think the fact that Tottenham don't want to sell to a domestic rival, to a club that will hopefully be challenging Tottenham next season for a Champions League spot, means there is a deal to be done with Bayern.
Can I just say, Sam, I mean, the only thing I will just say on Harry Kane, because I know many just feel it's an ongoing saga. My biggest concern is that Bayern would not have put that bid in my opinion, had they not been given encouragement from either Harry Kane or Harry Kane's camp to make that bid, which tells me that Harry is clearly, as you've said, open-minded to a move this summer, which in itself is quite worrying. The fact that we've got a situation where, we've got a pre-season under a new manager, we've got players that are coming through the door, and you're going to have somebody there that is quite frankly not particularly wanting to be there. We had this same situation under Nuno in 2021. How important is it, do you think, Sam, that there is some form of a deadline put on this where it doesn't allow this situation to derail itself coming into the season? Because in the most politest way I say this, Spurs have not got the most easiest start in terms of a fixture list, where going into Brentford and then subsequently Manchester United and those games to come, we do need to have a fast start, if I'm being honest with you. And we know Postecoglou, with no disrespect to him, I think his start at Celtic was, I think he won three of the first 8. He went out to the Champions League very, very quickly at Celtic. He needs everybody really to be behind him at 100%. How important is this, Sam, that this doesn't allow a situation to derail itself? Do you think Spurs will let it happen, or do you think they will put some form of a deadline to not allow it to get to the point which I'm trying to get to here?
I'm not sure though, but I just one small point. You mentioned that it's, he doesn't want to be. It looks like he doesn't want to be there. I'm not sure it's.
I mean, I think in terms of, he's open-minded to leaving. Open-minded to leaving, right?
Yeah,
he's open-minded to leaving.
He's definitely open-minded to leaving. I'm not necessarily sure he doesn't want to be at Tottenham.
Right.
And knowing, sort of Harry Kane being Harry Kane, wherever he is, he's just driven by scoring goals. So he'll be just as good a player at Bayern, but he'll give just as much effort at Bayern Munich as he would at Tottenham, or if he was at Real Madrid or Manchester United. But with regards to a saga, that's what you're saying, isn't it? Is that you what you don't want?
That's my biggest concern. With the season to come, pre-season, and then the start of the season, we can't allow it to derail our season. We simply can't.
I just think it's got all the hallmarks of a saga that will go into the final weeks of the final days of it, because Tottenham will, and Daniel Levy will want to eke out every single penny out of this deal. And Bayern Munich, my understanding of it, are saying, yeah, we want the player, but we don't want to spend 100 million euros on the player. We want to, because he's turning 30. There's no sell on. Yes, he is guaranteed goals, and you are literally buying goals when you buy Harry Kane, because he will score in any good team that creates chances. He's that good. But I just think it's got the hallmarks of another saga, unless Bayern Munich decide we don't want to go anywhere near where Daniel Levy wants us to go in terms of price, and they walk away. But I think Daniel Levy will just look at it from a business perspective and say, my job here is to get the best deal and get as much money for Harry Kane if we sell him, which I'm still not convinced that, as I said earlier, while I've got this nagging doubt at the back of my mind that he would, all of the information, all of the noises coming out of the club that they won't do it. So, you've got to take that, and you've got to believe that he's part of that they are determined to keep him. But knowing Daniel Levy and how, his history tells us that he's difficult to negotiate with, and he will do anything he can to ensure he gets the best possible deal for Tottenham and the club that he works for. And if that means dragging out a saga until August the 31st or whenever the deadline is, then so be it.
Definitely one we'll have to keep an eye on, Sam. Thank you for, at the end there, trying to give us some optimism. Fingers crossed he will be a Tottenham player. Look, Sam's trying to do everything. Yeah.
I don't think, I genuinely look at that situation, and it's, it's just it's more of an opinion, but an opinion based on the information that we've got available to us at the moment. I just don't think anyone will pay. Bayern Munich will pay the money that Daniel Levy is looking for, and he'll end up staying. But then I do genuinely think that he will go on a free next year. But I don't think there's any part of him at the moment that wants to sign a new contract. So
we massively appreciate the honesty. It's obviously a situation we'll keep our eyes on, definitely for sure. Matt, let's hand over you to close the interrogation.
Interrogation is the perfect word for it. There's two final questions that we always end on the show, and we have to do the same with you, Sammy. The first one I'm going to ask is, what do you feel would be success for Ange Postecoglou at Spurs this season? Actually, only a friend of mine at work who's a United fan said it to me today, and I couldn't really put together an answer. But what would you feel does constitute success? And on the back of that as well, my favourite question to ask everyone on the show: how many players do you think Spurs will sign before the window slams shut in September? And you have to be spot on.
Yes, Sam, no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Yeah, I think success. I think a top 6 finish would constitute success. Because there's going to be some good teams in the Premier League next season for sure. I think, Liverpool are gonna come back and be strong again. There were signs last season that Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool were starting to piece it back together again. So I think they're going to come back. Man City are going to be probably going to run away with the Premier League again. Arsenal are about to. Well, they've confirmed Kai Havertz today as their first signing of the summer. They're about to conclude the deal for Declan Rice. They will sign Julian Timber from Ajax as well. That's 3 massive signings worth close to 200 million quid. They're going to be good. They're going to be good again. I know it pains you guys to hear that, but Arsenal are going to be a good side. Man United, they need to strengthen, and if they don't strengthen, then they could be in danger. But I suspect they will strengthen this summer, and they will be a force again. Pochettino at Chelsea, he will get a tune out of them. He's a fantastic manager, as you guys well know. He will have those players sort of running through brick walls for him. So I think they will be there or thereabouts again. So getting into the top 4, Aston Villa, I thought took great strides under Unai Emery. Brighton are going to be there or thereabouts again. There's a lot of good sides in the Premier League, and there are going to be some good teams in the Premier League next season. So finishing in the top 6, while it doesn't get you into the Holy Grail that is in the Champions League, I think that would be a positive return for Ange Postecoglou. Whether you guys see it that way or whether Daniel Levy sees it that way is another question. But I think if you were to finish 6th, I think that would be a positive start and a positive first season. And it's I'm trying to.
Sam thought he got away with it there. He thought he got away with it.
Right. So what we got now? We're 2 players.
We're on 3 actually. We're actually. Well, I think are we counting Kulusevski? Or you can count. You want to count him, Sam? We can count.
Okay. Counting him, you have to count Paro.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
We're saying 4 then. Was it 4? Is it?
Precedented summer.
Matt, has Daniel Levy got a gun to your in the background there? Can I just confirm?
No.
So if we're in 4, now I will say you will sign another. I think you have to sign another 3 players, so 7 players.
7, okay.
I'll take that.
Wow. Well, listen, Sam, I must say it's been an absolute pleasure. It really, really has been. Sam, where can everybody find the wonderful work you do provide, not just for Tottenham, but the overall footballing community, even that lot down the road, which I don't really want to say that loud, but you do. Where can they find the wonderful work you do, Sam?
My work is posted on dailymail.co.uk, and then my Twitter handle, I think, if I can remember correctly, is Sami Mokbel, DM_81.
Yeah, it is verified.
Right,
I got someone nodding here saying it is, so it is. Apparently it is, Sam. There you go. I've got someone nodding to be here saying it is for him. Okay, superb. Sam, we may very much reach out to you towards the end of the window for maybe a bit of a debrief and see what Spurs have done or haven't done. Please do. I look forward to doing it. Absolute diamond. We'll see, Sam, if those 7 players you did say did actually all come off. Yeah, do I get a trophy? Got me out a trophy. If I get well, I'll tell you, we do. Can't we have the trophies? You can have that trophy. We'll have the genuine trophies if you don't mind. It's been an absolute pleasure, Sam. It has been. Matt, thank you for coming back on. The first of many for you coming up in these next few weeks. Absolute pleasure, Matt. Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. There's people going to be sick of my face by the end of the transfer window, but it wouldn't be right if they weren't. Sammy, absolute honour speaking to you again tonight. Thank you for your time. And Ricky, looking forward to the next show. No, listen, always. Sam, thank you so much. Lots of love for you in the comments here. Listen, there's been about 1,800 of you watching us live. Thank you so much for all your genuine support. From the wonderful Matty Hayes, from the superb Sami Mokbel, from, of course, the Daily Mail. Spurs have got their 3rd signing of this summer transfer window. James Maddison is fully COYS. From Matt, from Sam, from myself. Guys, as always, please keep safe, keep well, and as always, Come on, you Spurs. I know that sounds embarrassing. I might not be able to generally end the stream. There might be an issue from my end in terms of the ending of this broadcast. So we're going to have a go at this now. I'm trying